So, excuse me. So, today I think I am finally at the point that I want to share with you why you hear me saying from time to time that I just do not do Airbnb. I don't F with Airbnb. And I never shared why. I never shared what happened with the one and only time that I decided to go against how I normally do things and instead choose Airbnb as my living accommodations. So let me take you back to um, December of 2022. Um, I was still um, in Southern California, um, and still dealing with post-COVID changes. Had not completed at that time what I thought would have been a permanent, and I do mean permanent, move to Spain. And so I started making plans. I started making plans to head back to Barcelona. And in making those plans, I had spent a lot of times, like just like the rest of you all throughout COVID, what did we do? We joined a lot of Facebook groups and formed a lot of connections digitally, right? And so I took into consideration, even though I had a realtor in Barcelona that I had dealt with in the past, had no complaints. I could have easily have gone back to that realtor and said, hey, get me an apartment, 3-month lease, 6-month lease, 1-year lease, or what have you, and been happy. Um, dealing with the local realtor, you are putting up uh, documents and deposit, as you would anticipate with any rental. So I thought, this time I'm going to take a different route. Everyone, you know, brags about Airbnb. And I think, well, I know for a fact at that time I had stayed in 2 Airbnbs, but not 2 that I had booked. I had stayed in Airbnbs that were booked by someone else. So I wasn't the person doing the renting. Okay, I was just, one of the guests. Um, and I thought to myself, well, those places weren't bad. Why not? Why not keep more money in my bank account? Because you know me, I wasn't going to back to Barcelona on no 2-week vacation. Okay. I had no return flight back to the States. Okay. I was going at that time, I was planning to spend a few months in Barcelona, spend a few months in Austria, and a few months in the UK, and then back to Spain. That was my 2023 itinerary at that time. So I looked at Airbnb. I set up an account. I found a rental. It wasn't, I will openly say it wasn't in an area that I was really familiar with, but that didn't sway me too much. Um, I went on and booked it, and I booked it for 2 months. And I thought, okay, didn't have to put up a deposit, got, 2 months booked there. Um, Went ahead and actually booked my apartment for Austria at the same time. So I was already scheduled to move into my rental in Austria in March. Okay. So I definitely had some advanced planning, actually already knew where I would be staying in London as well later in the year. Okay. Um, so I leave the States, I think it was January 3rd, And I get to Barcelona, and I'm in constant communication with the host because there was a delay in my arrival, but I was in constant communication with the host to let them know what time I would be arriving to to the building. For the first time, I actually had a issue with my luggage as well, so I didn't have all of my luggage. So then I had to deal with that as well with luggage arriving the next day. Um, wasn't too concerned with that because of course I travel with, insurances and everything. I wrote my own policy. So, you know, but I arrive at this building, and when I get there, the door is propped open because there's another couple that is in the process of moving their things in from their van. And I go into the lobby, and they tell me that um the host sent a message saying to wait right there in the lobby. Someone was going to be coming to the lobby to get me. So as the other couple is going back and forth, we say our hellos and what have you. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And so then they say to me, "Oh, you must be the person moving into the apartment on the same floor that we're moving into." And but they're going down some stairs. So I said, "Well, the apartment is downstairs in the basement?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm standing there going, now I'm racking my brain going, did I know I rented a basement apartment? I did not recall anywhere in the ad that it said it was a basement apartment. Okay. So red flag number one. So at some point, the woman, as they were moving it, they had a lot of stuff that they was moving out of their van. Okay. They had driven down from, I want to say Ireland. Okay. I think it was somewhere like that. But anyway, Um, I end up, having a nice chat with the woman, and I asked her, "Did you know you were moving into a basement apartment?" So she said, no, she did not know either. So that at least confirmed, as I was still standing there waiting, that neither of us knew that we were moving into basement apartments. So it wasn't an oversight on my part. It was not there in the description. So, oh, and at some point, she had told me that the reason why they had me waiting was because they had someone in the apartment that I was moving into cleaning it at the time. And so when they finished cleaning, that's when they were going to come up and get me. So I'm like, it's like 9 o'clock at night, and they were expecting me really, I think around like 3 hours earlier. So why are they just cleaning it now? Okay. Alrighty. The one thing you learn and in these travels is you learn to take everything in stride. You take everything as a learning experience, as just being part of the journey, right? So I'm like, okay, no harm, no foul. I know the place is going to be freshly cleaned, at least, I guess. So eventually they come up and get me, and I head downstairs. Um, to this basement apartment. And as a matter of fact, I think I got a video to even show you. I can even show you what going down to this apartment looked like. And yeah, I got a few receipts I can definitely share with you. So I go down to this apartment, and like like a lot of us from the States, when we first physically see a place sometimes in certain countries, you may be astonished at how small really is. Okay, I'm just going to say that. I didn't expect this to be a grand apartment because I knew what I rented. I knew what kind of budget I was on, and sometimes um you, I don't know. I wasn't, but I wasn't expecting a basement apartment. for sure, because that means it's no natural light, and I would never in a million years book a place with no natural light. Um, so I go down, I get situated, and I already have just a lot of red flags going up, thinking, I don't know if 2 months is gonna work here. I'm already like haven't even closed my eyes for one night in a place, and I'm just like, I don't think this is gonna work. Because it also smells like a basement. Right across from my door was probably some kind of wet room. I don't know if it was a laundry room or if there was a water thing in there. I don't know, but it smelled dewy, mildewy, it just had that kind of smell. And so I go to take a shower, and this is also why one of my requirements is I don't do any places that have what I call these half showers, because this wasn't even a single shower. Because my apartment that I rented in Barcelona, um, before, and that was a year lease, I had a single shower. So I know for long-term rentals, I just never do single showers because they're small and then they're small, and I just don't like single showers. Um, but this was, temporary. I'm only going to be there for 2 months, and I'm thinking I'm going to deal with this single shower situation, and I'm going to deal with it eyes wide open. So it's something that I said okay to, but I didn't say okay to a basement apartment, and I didn't say okay to a half shower. It wasn't even a single, it was a half of a single, because you could only get half of your body in at a time. So you had to step out, turn around, step back in, yeah. Uh, so I navigated that, and I remember I sent an email. I went back online just to confirm for myself the next day that there was no indication that it was a basement apartment, no indication that it was a basement. Um, but I did find that this particular Airbnb host had several listings on Airbnb all around Barcelona, including some areas that I was quite familiar with. So I thought, maybe let me just reach out to the host, see if there's another unit that he has listed, and I can just move over to that. We can just transfer this over to something else, right? So I think it was around January 4th, maybe 2 days later, that I reached out. I don't think it was the very next day. It was probably the 4th or the 5th, like 2 days later, did an email. Um, just, nice email, but just saying that, I wasn't aware that it was a basement apartment. I mentioned the smell. I mentioned the fact that I do work remote, needing, some decent accommodation to be able to work comfortably. And that I had seen, a few other units. I made mention of which ones they were, and but just, could we just transfer? Got a response back that first of all, they made a point to say, no one has ever complained about the smell, get some air freshener. Okay. But that nothing else was available out of their other 20 odd so listings. No, they didn't have anything else for me. Uh, Life goes on, and I'm trying to make the most of the situation, and I spend most of my time during the day away from the apartment anyway, and just really coming into sleep. And so I'm trying to make the most of it, trying to make the best of it. Um but around I want to say probably the 19th of January is when I really was like, no, no, we're gonna have to change up this my plans because 2 months here is not gonna work. So I went on to Airbnb, and every time I was trying to make changes in the existing reservation, it was saying, and I was trying to change it, by the way. I knew I would get no refund or anything for January. January was paid. My next payment would be February. So um it kept saying if I left by January 31st, I would still owe 390. And I just couldn't, no matter how I did the math, it wasn't mathing. So I contacted Airbnb directly, told them the situation. And mind you, in between that, there were times where the lights would go out completely on in the basement floor and it would be pitch black. And then they would give me instructions on how to get the lights turned back on, go to a door outside the unit and press a button and all this kind of thing. Um so I didn't just reach out to Airbnb. I also reached out to the host. Okay. And um, so both were involved. And the Airbnb also reached out to the host. So I reached out to the host, Airbnb reached out to the host saying, the tenant wants, me wants to make changes, just stay till the end of January. And I was well ahead of any kind of penalties because this is around mid-January. So I'm well ahead I'm not going to receive any kind of penalties or anything of that nature. So we get all that squared away. The host actually, confirms what I want to do, confirms the date that I want to leave, sends me the reservation change, said that I just needed to, follow the link in the reservation change. If anything is due, it'll come up, just and everything will be changed. So I followed all the instructions, got everything changed, and now for all involved, I'm only going to be in that apartment till January 31st, right? So now I just have to change my reservations in Austria that were had me going into an apartment in March, just have myself going in February. I was able to make that change. Awesome. Um, and now I just gotta, get my airline ticket and what have you. So I'm thinking, okay, I see light at the end of the tunnel. I hate this place with a passion. I hate the neighborhood with a passion. I just don't like any of it, but it's part of the journey, part of the experience, and I've made the necessary changes to get the hell up out of there. On January, I would say around 25th or 26th. Oh, and mind you, I had an issue with my knee that came up. I had to go to the emergency room. So I was like laid up in there for like 3 days, couldn't walk until it hit me like, fool, you got insurance. Duh. Why are you laying in this 2x4 apartment? I had to go to the emergency room, do all that. Oh, I'm just like, I just want to leave Barcelona at this point. I just want to get up out of there. Right now, it's bad karma. Okay. It's just bad, bad, bad vibes. I just want to go. Around the 25th or the 26th, the host calls me, wakes me up. Um, and I'm quite sure I was on pain meds from my hospital visit. Wakes me up and says that they haven't received my payment. And so if I didn't make payment, um, or maybe they called a few days before the 25th or 26th and said I needed to pay by the 26th or pay or leave by the 26th. Something of that nature. I'm going to pull up a folder in just a moment. We're going to look at some receipts. Okay. So I assume that they are mistaken. They have several units that they rent around Barcelona. And so I'm just assuming this is a very honest mistake and they forgot that the reservation was changed and that I was paid up through January 31st and would then be leaving. So any payment that was trying to come out a few days before the 31st would have been for February. But since I wasn't paying for February and already had all that taken care of and in writing, that this was an honest mistake. I really, really was not concerned until they were persistent and said, no, if I didn't pay, I would have to leave by the 26th. So that's when I had to get up. Had to get up, get myself, wake up, get myself together. And I reached out to them and they were holding steadfast to that scenario. So I contacted Airbnb directly because they were, involved in the whole thing of changing my reservation. And I started getting the runaround with Airbnb, sort of like staying on hold, being transferred. In the very beginning, they did say that they would reach out to the host. They did see the changes, and that I was paid up through the 31st. Um, let's just fast forward a few hours in the day. Fast forward because I ended up having to go back and forth between this host and Airbnb for the bulk of this day, um, and got nowhere. Airbnb basically started just putting me on hold and saying there until they ultimately said there was nothing they could do if the host was saying I had to leave. And I'm like, well, the host is saying I have to leave if I don't make this payment, which really would be me paying February. I'm paid through to the 31st. So it started looking like none of that was going to matter. And I started having these scenarios go around in my head about, being asleep in the middle of the night and having the door opened and being kicked out onto the street in Spain. Um, I started thinking about, having encounters with the police in Spain over this and just and my better judgment was like, get out of their place. Get out of their place. And ladies, you understand when you travel solo, you are not trying to have any negative encounters. So I thought, let me get out of here. So I ultimately um I couldn't change the reservation that I had in Austria. I couldn't get into the apartment in January. The apartment would be available, I think it was February 1st. So I had to get a hotel. So I ended up booking a hotel, ended up when I made the change around the 19th of the month, I also bought my airline ticket to go to Austria. I ended up having to contact Ryanair, excuse me, make changes, okay, pay the penalty, make changes on that flight because I was trying to now get a flight for like first thing in the morning. I mean, like, I just wanted to get out of there. I wanted to get out of there. I was at that point having all kind of thoughts, and I was like, just leave this place or anything. You're not going to be able to get a wink of sleep in here or no rest. So I paid the penalties, paid everything, got my flight changed, booked a hotel to that I could stay in Austria until the apartment was ready. And I was on the first flight of the day. I ended up getting an Uber at like 6 in the morning because I was like, I'd rather sit at the airport for hours than to sit in this place. So I was up, had my luggage sitting outside waiting on the Uber. And yeah, this was close to the time that I was dealing with the issue with my knee and I was taking pain. pills because I remember it was a challenge for me getting the suitcases up the stairs. So never mind that I'm leaving a place that is paid for up to January 31st. Okay. They're still threatening that if I don't pay February, I have to be out by January 26th. Okay. Now, I said find some I was gonna show you some things. It's taken up to now for me to even talk about this. I just say I don't do Airbnb and that's all I say. But I never have shared why. I just have not shared why. Um, but I think it's important, when you are, you know, s- when you're going for your location independence, are moving abroad and everything is not everything is not IG perfect. Everything is not a freaking bed of roses. Everything doesn't always go the way you think it should go. Everything is not people the thing with that frustrates me sometimes is most of the things that's shared in social media is only showing you the good part, or it's only showing you like someone you know who has buku money and they're doing things in luxury and you see them, you know everything looks perfect. I call it IG perfect. And the reality is life keeps life in it ain't all like that. It's not all like that, you know. But I mean, and for every dip, for every challenge or whatever, I have never felt any regret. I feel like it's all worth it. It's all part of the journey. And quite frankly, this has really been the only negative experience I've had when it comes to living accommodations in any country. And because it happened to me through Airbnb, and because Airbnb was in the midst of my communications with this host, and then their response was, oh, well, it's basically whatever the host says. They didn't have my back in no way. They're just a company that gives a platform, that disrupted the industry, gave a platform to everyday people to do rentals. But if the person you're renting from has no integrity, then this is what could happen. And Airbnb is not going to do shit. They're not going to do a daggone thing about it. Now, I'm going to do a share. I'm going to do a share. And I am hoping, as a matter of fact, wait a second, let me see something. Let me see something. I think you can see. I think you can see the screen. Okay. I'm going to start with this is this is what was posted. And you can see here my check-in was January 4th to February 28th initially. Initially. Okay. Tiny place that at that time for those first 2 months I wasn't looking for the Ritz. Okay. Tiny place. Um Double bed. This was their picture of the shower, that I just equated it to being a single, and I had dealt with a single, wasn't my preference, but I thought for this period right here, because I knew I was going to have a big shower in Austria, you know. And let me tell you, sometimes, and if you know this, especially when you're doing slow travel, um, if if you're staying within a budget, if how I plan things out is I will decide where I'm going to pull back and then where I'm going to splurge a little more. I'll do that. Now, I knew this is where I'm going to start in the wintertime, January and February, but I also knew where I was going to be staying March, April, and May, June, July, and I knew what my accommodations was going to be like, and it was a world of difference. And so I thought, and I knew what my January and February work, was what I was going to be doing. So I was like, all right, Arnitha, deal with the single shower. This is the right price. Deal with the single shower, but that's not a single shower. That's not a single shower. I don't know if you would have been able to tell from looking at that. Okay, you can see my shadow up there. Anyway, I don't know if you could have been able to tell. I didn't know it was such thing as I didn't know and I didn't know that there was a such thing as a half shower, a half single. I didn't know that was a thing. So I learned something. With this place, I learned something because that's not a single. That's not a single. That's a half of a single. Yeah. Okay. Now remember I said I had a video? Okay. I hope this video play as a matter of fact, let me stop sharing for a second because I want to see something because I know there's a way to make sure you can I think to make sure you pick up the sound. Well, you don't need the sound. I don't even think I say shit. But let's see. Okay. Yeah, I had to film this mess because I was like, where in the hell are you? What the heck, Arnitha? You I had to I think it was important for me to even film that just so and I even started filming walking from the metro all the way to that apartment. I would film the entire walk. Okay. Because it's part of my journey. It's I was there for a whole month. I was living in and there was people down there that had dogs. Child. Okay. So let's go back. Did I stop sharing? Let's go back to the share, shall we? Okay. For those of you, if you know Barcelona, this was the street. Okay. For those of you who I think I'll have something that shows you which Airbnb host this is. Stay away from this host. Okay. Here, let's look at this. This is Airbnb support. Okay. Great to know that the dates of this reservation successfully changed. 31st of January. Please note that you will not get any refund. You will also not be paying for another month of February. I want to make sure that I have helped you solve your concern and that everything is all set. This was in the middle of January when I got all the changes done. So I'm operating under the assumption that I only got a couple of more weeks to this place and I'm paid through the 31st and I don't owe them another dime and out of here. That's the consensus. You can see it's from Airbnb support. Hmm. Okay. Um, I made the change. Oh, you can see here, January 26th, because this is the date I ultimately left. So from January 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 6 days early. So, if they were able to get someone else in there on the 27th or 20, whatever, they just had a whole double payment because I was paid through January 31st. Okay. Let me see if I can fast forward to some of these communications. That's where I left the keys. This is the hotel. I had to book a hotel from the 26th through the 3rd. I said I think I moved into the apartment on the first, no, the 3rd. Okay. So now I'm paying additional. I'm I already was paid to January 31st. Now I'm just double paying. And now I'm in a whole nother country paying for a hotel. Um to show you what they were trying to collect. So my first payment was 1168. My second payment, what they were trying to collect from me was the 935.86 for February. That would have covered February. But because we made the changes, it was no longer due. Okay. Now, let's see if I can find, I thought I may have had it circled. Uh, no, that's that. You've already seen that one. Okay. Santiago and Avita Y Max. If you plan on going to Barcelona and using Airbnb, stay away from this host. This is the host. This is the host. Talk to them to see what happened. I can't do anything more. Just look for my keys on the 26th, as they say. So I was being put out, even though the communications we had a few weeks early was that I'm paid up through the 31st. This is why I got the hell up out of that place. This is why I took an Uber to the airport at like 6 in the morning because I was afraid that someone was going to come in there and throw me out. Okay. Um, I here you see me telling them, that I do not owe 936 for the 4 day stay. My bill for January was settled up to January 31st, and you acknowledge that on the 19th. Look at here. I said this and I was screenshotting and sending so many recollections to this host and to Airbnb trying to, like let everybody know, like, why are we acting like this reservation wasn't changed 2 weeks ago? Why are we acting like I didn't change this reservation around the 19th of the month? Why are we acting like I still owe for February? And so I kept doing screenshots. I kept going back and forth until I really realized. I really, really realized what was happening. And what was happening was Airbnb is like, my name is what's that saying? My name is Emmett, I ain't in it, some shit. Airbnb wasn't going to speak up for me. Airbnb wasn't going to do anything. Airbnb was, no matter how many calls, how many emails, how many screenshots, nothing. It was not going to matter. And because this host um had no integrity, um the situation was what it was, and I thought it best to just leave. If it meant that I was going to be putting out more money, um and pay for accommodation somewhere else, even though I was paid up where I was, my safety, my peace of mind, my sanity, everything wasn't worth it. But this was the one and only time that I ever dealt with the Airbnb. I will never, ever deal with Airbnb again. Um, I went back to how I seek out my accommodations. I've never had an issue when I deal with the local realtors. The realtor that I recommend in Barcelona is SH Barcelona. SH Barcelona. What you see is what you get. You get your deposits back really fast. Um, and I just will never, if it means, putting up a deposit, the deposit is worth it. The deposit is worth it. They have offices around Barcelona. You can physically go in and see someone and talk to someone if you have any concerns. They are a legitimate business there in Barcelona. This particular host wouldn't know if he walked up to me in the street, don't know who they are. But I do know that it was a horrible stay. They did not advertise that it was a basement apartment. They had heating issues, they had lighting issues. The lights would go out, poof, like a fuse going off, and so it's pitch black down there. No natural light. Um, I learned where the fuse box was so that I could always go turn the lights back on. The neighborhood is not where I would recommend for a single woman. Not, and I'm not saying that because of crime or anything like that. It's just that when you are traveling solo as a woman, you want proper lighting of the streets. You it's just things that would make us feel safer. The walk was too far from the metro and too dark at night, way too dark. And it wasn't a community that had a lot of activity. Things closed early, so it would get very, very desolate. So even if you're not coming in very late, if the shops have closed up, then there's really no one walking the streets or anything. Very, very unlike, the other neighborhood that I lived in Barcelona, where, you had cafes and activity and what have you. It was a pleasure. Matter of fact, you could, leave out at 10 or 11. It was just different. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Um, no, was not, was not. Um, yeah, it was. It was at the time a very scary situation because I just didn't know. The host just being that persistent with me to pay February, which you may have seen that I said in a message. Basically, you're getting this additional $936 for the next, 4 or 5 days until the January 31st, and I don't owe it. That's paid already. Didn't matter to them. Did not matter. So that's my Airbnb nightmare. That is why I will not do Airbnb. If you have good luck with Airbnb, I would say, hey, okay. That's all I can say is okay. And but ladies, let's be careful out there. Let's always have our plan Bs, and be able to pivot really quick. Okay? All righty. Ciao and happy travels. Join RYL Abroad so that we can keep the resources and the tools that we need flowing.